It is World Sexual Health Day, and thank you so much for joining us to celebrate this special day in the WAS calendar and the global calendar. WAS, the World Association for Sexual Health, is the official custodian of World Sexual Health Day. We are a global confederation and we are aimed towards professionals in sexual health and rights. And it's a big honor for us that you are joining us today. And we thank you for all of the efforts that all of you are making globally to celebrate World Sexual Health Day with us, and specifically this year under the theme of positive relationships. We've got a fantastic panel here today, but first I want to ask you, where are you joining us from? I'm from South Africa. I'm Elna Rudolph, the president of the World Association for Sexual Health, and I would like to hear. We've got the west of Ireland, we've got Scotland, we've got India, we've got North Carolina, London, Canada, Brazil, Marseille, more from South Africa, Mexico, Turkey, Australia, Quebec, Michigan, Finland. Wonderful. Thank you so much. This makes it really feel like a global organization. We are going to go through various talks on positive relationships today with fantastic experts, some from within WAS, some of our great colleagues and friends. And I would like you to post your questions into the Q&A, please. And if we get a chance in between, we can answer some of those questions. There will hopefully be a time for a Q&A at the end of the session as well. And then I would also like to encourage you to share your experience here with us on World Sexual Health Day on social media. And please use the hashtags, hashtag World Sexual Health, WSHD and 2024 and hashtag positive relationships. We will share it with you in the chat as well so that you have that. Please, if you haven't visited the official World Sexual Health Day website, go and check it out. There's so many resources that you can download and that you can share on your own social media platforms, that you can develop into training programs for your colleagues locally. And please create a buzz around World Sexual Health Day. We've also shared a statement from the World Association for Sexual Health about our take on positive relationships that's deeply rooted in the WAS Sexual Rights Declaration. And we'd like to share that with you as well. It's been shared on social media today. But I would quickly like to introduce you to our team that we have here today. And there we have Lynn Barclay up first. She's in the United States. We've got Eszter Kismödi, who's in Switzerland. Bradley Daniels is in South Africa. Faisal Al-Kak is in Lebanon. Isolde Ataide is in the USA. We've got Justin Garcia also in the USA. Armin Arihana is in Australia. And Esther Corona is in Mexico. So thank you so much to our global panel here. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to all of your talks. I am now going to hand it over to Lynn Barclay, who is the president and the CEO of ASHA, the American Sexual Health Association, and she's also the chair of World Sexual Health Day. So, Lynn, thank you so much for joining us, and I would like you to just give us a little bit of background on World Sexual Health Day. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Elna. And I am so excited today is finally here. We've been working towards this, since last September 4th. So our theme, as you know, is positive relationships. And we reached that theme because we were trying to figure out how to combine the different aspects of what makes us sexually healthy. We over the years, the first World Sexual Health Day was in 2010. So over the years, we've celebrated many, many different subjects. And we want somehow positive relationships seem to combine them all, which you'll hear a lot about from the various talks. In 2 years ago, it was pleasure. Last year was consent. And so this year you can see kind of a progression on that. And when we talk about relationships, we're talking about all kinds of relationships. We're World Association for Sexual Health. So people kind of immediately think only of sexual relationships, but in fact, that is not what we are trying to convey. We are talking about relationships that are sexual, romantic, family, relationships with your healthcare providers, with your friends, even your neighbors. All of them have an impact on you and how you see your life and others. So make sure you go to worldsexualhealthday.org. That's a website dedicated to the subject with, as Elna said, lots and lots of resources. And I hope everybody celebrates this moment in time. World Sexual Health Day is such an important thing. And to our last count, I believe more than 60 countries participate in this on this day and this month. So we don't restrict things to this day because we can't do everything in one day. So feel free to have an event or post social media all month. It'll be great and much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. And thank you for all of the hard work that you and your committee did to get World Sexual Health Day together for us this year. And every year during this administration, you have changed the face of World Sexual Health Day. We appreciate it. So up next, I'd like to introduce you to Eszter Kismödi. She's an international human rights lawyer and specialized in sexual and reproductive health and rights, law, policy, programming, and research. She's a member of the executive committee of WAS and the chair of the WAS Sexual Rights Committee. Eszter, it's such a privilege for us to have you on our team and for all of your wisdom. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be here. And I somehow felt that it's a party pooper to start with the human rights lawyer, such an exciting panel, instead of starting listening to Bradley music or some poem. But as a good lawyer, I put under investigation from a sexual rights perspective, two aspects of this Sexual Health Day. One is the positive and the other one is the relationships, as Lynn provided in her introduction. What does it mean from a sexual rights point of view? Since WAS elaborated the Sexual Rights Declaration and the Pleasure Declaration and the Justice Declaration, we are putting special relevance on what does it mean exactly. So when we are coming to positive sexual relations, we want to think about a happy, satisfying sexual life through positive relationships, or practicing sexuality and sexual health alone, with love, desire, without the conditions of stigma, discrimination on the basis of our age, sexuality, sex, gender, race, ethnicity, and all. This would be and have all the resources and the means to keep ourselves healthy in relation to our sexuality, sexual health, and health as it affects of all. The situation is that we have so many relationships, positive and negative, that we need to think about, that I just would like to drive us through a journey, that what those relationships may be, and talk about the negative as well, in order to work towards to change them to the positive. So start with partners. We have relationship with partners that affects our privacy, dignity, self-determination, but also our right to security, free of coercion, the right to free of coercion and violence. Whether the previous Sexual Health Day was about consent, whether we have consent to our partner's relationship in our sexuality, or we are experiencing coercion or violence, is determining our personal relationships. We also have interesting direct or indirect or not so interesting relationship with the states. So what kind of state actors are we talking about? We have direct or indirect relationship with parliamentarians through the laws that are affecting our sexuality and sexual health. Just start with the positive side. It was Portugal who introduced the first sexual health law in the world, and it was the parliament who introduced Sexual Health Day. Congratulations for the Portuguese parliament in 2020. That seems to be a small act, but actually it was a huge act, putting sexual health on a parliamentarian agenda and recognition. There are laws that are deeply affecting our sexuality and sexual health. Many laws that are still criminalizing around the world sexuality, sexual choice, sexual autonomy, including those that are criminalizing sexual orientation, gender expression, sexual choice, sexual act, sex work, for example, sex work, also those who are criminalizing the sharing of sexual information, or under 18 sex based on autonomy and self-determination. It was, for example, an international body, legal authority, the International Criminal Court, that changed the definition of rape, and that influenced so many laws around the world that recognizes that rape is, for example, not only a penile penetration, forceful penile penetration into a vagina, but anybody, regardless of sex, gender, can be raped, and it requires protection and action, and not only with the penis, but any kind of objects, and not only penetration, but other forceful, not only into the vagina, but the anus as well. So these definitional, legal definitional aspects, for example, creating a lot of conditions in society that influences positive relationships. When Lynn mentioned that we have relationships with the health system, with the health services, with the healthcare providers, whether STI, contraception, abortion services, services for HIV, provided, how they are provided without fear, without stigma, discrimination, whether and how the healthcare providers train, and whether and how the linkages between health system, for example, self-care in relation to between primary, secondary, and tertiary level services are provided throughout the health system. There is an ongoing agenda in the United Nations and internationally on elimination of discrimination in healthcare settings, and we have more and more data how it has an impact on sexual relationship, enjoyment of sexual health and sexual rights, for example, transgender people, intersex people, those who are living with HIV and disability. So how positive relationship can be enhanced. When we talk about health, sexuality, we need to think about other sectors as well. Eszter will talk about more about sexuality education. For example, how we have a relationship with teachers, with the education sectors, whether or not sexuality education provided in schools, but also, for example, whether our preferred gender can be recognized in our educational and identity documents. We also have an influence whether or how we can enjoy education at all and sexual education. For example, the documented impact on health in general and sexual health as well of women who are excluded from public life by the Taliban government in Afghanistan, showing how much impact it can have on life, well-being, health, and sexual health as well. We have relationship with the police. The police can provide protection, for example, against sexual violence, but it can also be discriminatory, endanger our security because and how, for example, transgender people are harassed and criminalized and prosecuted because of their gender expression, or because of intersectional discrimination against them, because how they are engaging in or not in sexual activities, how they express their sexuality, engaging in sex work because other employment opportunities are not allowed of them. This is the same for sex workers, those engaging in same-sex sexual orientation, or even those who are promoting sexuality and sexual health through peaceful movements, for example. War and conflict is influencing our sexual and sexual health, our relationship with all of these, all of actors, with our neighbors, with our partners, with our families are changing. Those who are living in war and conflict are subjected to increased violence, both by those who are imposing war and conflict on them, or there is increased violence within society, but also the destroying of hospitals that is now being recognized as a war crime is also influencing our sexuality and sexual health, whether we have access to contraception, abortion, for STI, treating STIs, also determines for the protection those who are expressing sexual orientation and gender identity in different ways. Those who are under 18 are under increased scrutiny because of their sexuality and sexual health, and because of the jeopardy and their sexuality and sexual health. We have relationship with the United Nations because the norms and standards of the United Nations are influencing our laws and policies, health system, and how we can exercise our sexuality and sexual rights in a positive way. For example, WHO issued in 2015 a sexual health, human rights and the law publication that then influenced in then several laws and policies at country level. But for example, we are also experiencing great violations of our sexual rights by appointed United Nations officials, such as the Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women and Girls, who just issued this year a report on prostitution and violence against women and girls that is not only equaling women and girls with prostitution, but also disregarding all rights that are recognized in relation to sex work, sexual autonomy, labor rights, and self-determination in relation to sex work. We have our relationship with our international organizations because we are participating in their work and we are trying to promote sexual rights and sexual health and sexuality around the world, such as WAS issued those declarations, organizing conferences. But for example, the IPPF declaration on sexual rights completely changed the discourse around sexual rights that can have a great influence on us. We have our relationship in relation to movements because we are participating in movements or because we are affected the impact of movements. For example, how the intersectionality between the sex worker rights, feminist movement, transgender movement, disability rights movement, the decriminalization of sex work and stopping trafficking movement can actually change discourses and laws around many of those issues that are affecting sexuality and sexual health. We have our relationship with our parents who may be able to understanding and accommodating of the gradual expression of our sexuality, but there are parents around the world who are still locking up and subjecting their children, for example, to conversion therapy because they are expressing their gender identity or sexual orientation in different ways than the expected norm. And even, for example, the World Health Organization removed sexual orientation from mental health disorders and in 73, and the last code in the last ICD-11 iteration in 2018, there are several countries still in the world that are allowing the continued existence of conversion therapies. We have our relationship with our neighbors, landlords, and employers. And when, for example, the laws like in Uganda last year introduced not only the criminalization of sexuality, same-sex sexual orientation, but put an obligation on healthcare provider, landlords, employers, and neighbors to report those who are expressing same-sex sexual orientation, can influence and change our relationship. We have a relationship with technology. For example, menstrual apps are helping us to monitor our menstruation cycle and how our relationship can be planned around our sexuality. It's also being used for surveillance. For example, menstruation apps are being misused now, well documented in the US. Reporting about abortion that is just recently criminalized in many states, but surveillance can also subject people to prosecution, arrest, and other violations. Last slide, we have our relationship with our art and artists as well. For example, art can promote sexuality, sexual expression, gender identity in various ways. It can create pleasure, can disturb us, but art can also promote hateful sexual messages that can actually violate our sexual rights. So this was a little bit of a provocation introduction, how to think about positive and how to think about sexual relationship. And please visit our Sexual Rights Declaration because it can give you more insight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eszter. We will share the Sexual Rights Declaration in a link definitely during this presentation still. And I just realized that everything in sexual health, if you're a professional in sexual health, is built on relationships. And the relationships we build, doesn't matter on which level it is, all these levels that you've mentioned, all actually matters. So thank you for investing your time and insight into this today. Up next, I want to introduce you to Justin Garcia. He is from the Kinsey Institute, and Kinsey is one of the member organizations of WAS. And Justin, thank you so much for joining us today. I am not going to read your whole bio. We pasted in the chat because we want to get to your very interesting topic as soon as possible, and that is sex, safety, survival, and the heart of positive relationships. So, Justin, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It's great to see you, Elna, President Rudolph, and everyone. It's great to be together to gather and remember the importance of WASP, but also what our common goals are in terms of thinking about sexuality and well-being and relationships. For me, this is really an exciting theme this year. Let me share my slides, and it's great to see so many friends that are on here with us. So one of the things I'm excited about for this year's theme for us is a lot of our work at the Kinsey Institute, and I'm going to briefly, just in a few minutes, give some high-level thoughts of how it integrates. A lot of our work in the last few years has started to think about the ecology or the context of our sexual lives. And we know that varies in so many different ways. Sometimes it's with no partners, it's sexuality that exists with the absence of partners. Sometimes it's with one long-term partner, sometimes multiple long-term partners, and sometimes multiple partners at any given time. That's all part of the beautiful diversity of relationship contexts that our sexual lives can be experienced in. But I wanted to talk a little bit about a different way that I think we can also add to further enrich this theme of positive relationships this year. And it's coming from my background as an evolutionary biologist and anthropologist, and it has to do with this question of safety. So I'm actually going to start with a quote from my colleague, Helen Fisher. Many of you know Helen just passed away recently, where many of us in the WASP community and certainly here at the Institute are still grieving her loss. And I was thinking last night about a quote that I loved from her in her book, Anatomy of Love. So I'll read it quickly, and I think it will help explain, because I want to talk about romantic and sexual relationships in these next few minutes. When Helen described the evolution of pair bonds of romantic love, she was interested in why they emerged in humans in the first place. And the evidence suggests around 4 million years ago, our ancestors formed intense bonds, these intense romantic relationships. And listen to how Helen described it. The human craving for romance, our drive to make a sexual attachment, the restlessness during long relationships, our perennial optimism about our new sweetheart. These passions drag us like a kite upon the wind as we soar and plunge unpredictably from one feeling to another. These emotions must come from our ancestry. So I shall propose that they evolved with Genesis to drive our ancestors in and out of relationships. I bring this up, one, to honor my friend and colleague Helen, but also because I think it's a reminder of the intensity of romantic relationships. So when we think about positive relationships and we think about romantic bonds and healthy bonds, I think there's a part of that story that we say, okay, well, if you have romantic bonds and we want to promote them to be healthy and consensual and equitable and respectful, but there's another part of that, and it's that it's a bit of a two-way street. So romantic relationships often take risk, that unpredictability that Helen talked about. And I often think about it as a trapeze event. And it can be exciting, and you can do it on your own. You could be there with someone else. But what I like about this picture is it reminds me that in the best case, there's some safety net. There's something underneath. There's something that catches us, that allows us to take that risk, to be that kite, to soaring, plunging up and down in the wind. And for relationships, positive relationships can provide us that safety net. They can provide us the opportunity to engage in risk, to engage in exploration, to test the boundaries of who we are and what we want, if we have the safety of a relationship. But I also think it goes the other way around, that it's also having safety allows us to explore those relationships. And the importance of that two-way street, many of us in our own research programs or our education programs or our clinical practice, we think of it as a one-dimensional, right? We think that, okay, well, if you're in relationships, you have all these positive outcomes, including a sense of safety. But what if we also think the other way, that if you have that feeling of safety, if we can promote that, that positive relationships become an outcome of having that safety? And that's what I want us to think about, that it's these two components of what we would think about in psychological safety that contribute together to our sense of positive relationships. And in fact, I kept thinking about how should I create an image of some sort? And first, was it a circle? Was it arrows? And I thought, well, it's getting too complicated. I'm not going to do it. I just want to talk through it together, because my real goal is for us to just think about how we imagine and we remember in our work as sexologists and as relationship scientists, this two-way street. One way I always like to think about this, and we talked a lot about this during the pandemic, including here during a WASP panel when we were looking at the impact of the COVID pandemic on people's romantic and sexual lives, why sexual frequency was decreasing so dramatically, including masturbation, solo behavior. And one thing I thought a lot about is, well, for a lot of people, there was a sense of threat. And something as a biologist that I always think about, in the natural world, you'll never see two gazelle mating in front of a lion, right? That when we're in a threat response, they might graze, they might watch, but mating behavior or bonding behavior or sexual activity doesn't thrive in the context of threat or fear. It requires some sense of safety. And particularly, unlike gazelle, we know that humans have long and complex, intimate relationships. And as others have said earlier, as Elna opened us with, they're not always romantic and sexual, but that those relationships require a context of safety. I often rely on another one of my Kinsey Institute colleagues' work to think about this, Stephen Porges, who's a distinguished university scientist with the Kinsey Institute, and his work on the polyvagal theory. As some of you know, the vagus nerve goes from the brainstem all the way down and extends through the body. It is mostly receptive in terms of it as 80% of the nerve and the sort of nerve connections are about receiving information. That includes from the social world around us. One of the things that Dr. Porges has done in his work is really think about how we have these responses to safety and to threat, and that when we're under states of threat, we might be immobilized. We're totally frozen. We might be mobilized. That's the flight response we often think about. But in the best case, when we're in a sense of safety and we're relaxed, the nervous system, our body, is prepared for social engagement. That's when we can be not the gazelle watching the lion, but we can be the gazelle having fun. We could be the gazelle socializing. And the reason I use gazelle is because it turns out that this is something shared by all mammals, that social mammals in particular, it is rooted in a very deep aspect of our nervous system, our parasympathetic physiology, about how we engage with the world around us. So this idea that safety is important, and I'm going to move forward a little bit more. I was thinking a lot about, here's a poll from CNN, and it was initially done in the United States, and looking at thousands of women online. And I'm thinking a lot about the current context with which our relationships exist. I found this shocking. 33%, a third of women said that they feel unsafe online. That wasn't in the context of dating apps or in the context of sexual connections, just in general. So what that tells me is that for all of us as researchers, clinicians, educators, we're thinking about existential threats. That's global war, that's climate change, that's how we're using technology, that those threats are weighing on all of us, and they're creating a sense of not being that safe. So if we want to think about promoting positive relationships and healthy and exciting romantic and sexual lives, we have to think about how all of our bodies around the globe are responding to these social, political, environmental landscapes. And for many people, whether you're online on your phone like here, or you're out at the grocery store, there's a sense of not feeling totally safe. That is not the core ingredient we need, all of us need, to promote positive relationships for this year and for the rest of our careers. And I'll just quickly end on some of our own data showing this. I think it's why we've seen an explosion in things like video dating in people's romantic lives. I wanted to add this really quickly because it highlights to me it's a way that people are thinking about regaining a sense of safety, regaining against a sense of control, and how we connect. So we see people video dating. 5 years ago, I asked people about video dating in our National Singles in America sample. No one was interested. But today we're seeing very high rates of people. Partly the pandemic, partly, I think, this global threat. So we have to think more and more how we give people the tools to cultivate close relationship, to cultivate a sense of agency in how they connect. And I'll end on this, and I see some of my friends on here who work in this space in sex education too. That new paper that we have out with my colleagues Jessica Hilly and Amanda Gesselman using our Singles in America study. In a national sample of single adults, 44% said that had they had more sex education, more comprehensive sex education, today they would have healthier and happier romantic relationships. That is a number that all of us can use and should use to feel encouraged about why our work is important. We can keep doing sex ed, we can give people a sense of agency, a sense of safety, and together we can promote these positive relationships throughout the life course. Thank you so much for the opportunity to help get us started today, and I look forward to being here with the rest of you for today and throughout the year. Thanks, Elna.
Love what you said there to affirm all of the important work that everyone, all the professionals in this field is doing, and especially you guys at Kinsey. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's an honor to have you. Up next, I have Faisal Al-Kak, and to me, Faisal, your most important credential is the fact that you are the president of the East Mediterranean Federation for Sexual Health, the newly established federation of WAS, officially in your region, from Lebanon, from a country with so many challenges, and here you are doing such important work, specifically in women's health. And I thank you for coming on and sharing your talk with us today. Your full bio will also be shared in the chat, but your talk is on sexuality education as a powerful tool for positivity and communications, or sexual literacy in couples. Faisal, over to you.
Thank you very much, our president. You are our inspiration. Thank you very much. And thanks for my also colleagues, panelists, and thanks for Justin for really finishing up where I want to start on this. Just to save time, well, in the coming 10 minutes, I will just show the importance of really sexual communication in positive relationships and what sex education can do to improve this education, whether in relation to sexual scripts or to sexual assumptions. Just to let you know that in long-term relationships, partners report only knowing 62% of what their partners find sexually pleasing. Only 26% of what their partners find sexually displeasing, again reflecting the poor sexual communication. In fact, two of the most important predictors of relationship satisfaction repeatedly found in several studies were two things: sexual satisfaction and healthy couple communication. But what we don't know is that communication is a general communication about every day, about work, about kids, about school, or is it about the sexual communication? It is assumed that sexual problems can be fixed through improving general communication within relationships. That's what we do as providers and probably other specialists, but apparently there is something more to this, okay? In recent research, the valid question was raised: does couples' sexual communication rather than general communication influence relational dynamics and sexual functioning? It's one of the few interesting papers I have read, and they answer this assumption, and they concluded that the focus on sexual communication is based on assumption that couples may communicate differently about sex than they do about other relational areas within a relation, and that's very important. There's a very interesting review by Sandra Byers, Beyond the Birds and the Bees, and Was It Good for Me? Again, stating that sexual experience and expression is of fundamental importance to most people. In fact, she goes on saying that sexual communication is important to sexual satisfaction and well-being, whether it is parents, couples, providers. We fail to get the sex ed or the comprehensive education that Justin just mentioned, and also we fail to provide that kind of education to serve later on sexual communication and positive relationships. And the analysis goes that there are three entities out there. There is the individuals who self-disclose, and those are the most successful in maintaining a good relation. And there are also those with a poor partner understanding, and that will interfere in developing sexually satisfying scripts among the couple. And there are also those that have their partners' perception about their sexuality is based on my assumption and not on the partner's communication and partner dynamics, and also those do very poorly in their relation. It's a very interesting paper looking at a dyadic path analysis in relation to sexual communication and sexual literacy, and they relate this to satisfaction and even to orgasm frequency. So they went to the sexual function, okay? And it was shown that the communication content was associated with both relationship and sexual satisfaction at the same time. And this is a very busy slide just to show you, like, when there is a sexual communication, in general, there is more benefit to the male than the female. While if there is a sexual script that best fitting the female perception to reflect more on the female in a relationship. So why, in this case, self-disclose is related to greater sexual well-being? Well, there are two pathways that being shown in the literature. The one is called the instrumental pathway, which is sexual self-disclosure permit individual to negotiate mutually pleasurable sexual scripts. And there is the expressive pathway where sexual and non-sexual self-disclosure might lead to higher sexual well-being by enhancing intimacy. And of course, you have moderators for this: individual, interpersonal, duration of relation, content, frequency, and also, of course, the cultural factors. Well, in all of this, apparently, sexual education factors very well in building positive relationships. There's another paper from Seattle, Beyond the Birds and Bees, Sex Education and Impact on Communication, Self-Efficacy, and Relationships. And the other one, another recent document in relationships and sex education and the evidence. And they discuss 6 areas: sex education experience, the content of the topic, the depth of the topics, the scale of communication, the self-efficacy, and also the sex communication self-efficacy. And in these slides, you can see that the more, like the last slide shown by Justin, the more the exposure to sex education and the more in depth the topics are, the more are the satisfaction and the positivity in a relation. And both depth of discussion and sexual communication self-efficacy contribute to relationship satisfaction. Same thing here, also exposure and depth. They also relate to general self-efficacy and not only to sexual self-efficacy. In fact, relationships and sex education, they impact all these spheres, from the relationships to growing bodies, autonomy, puberty, the physical, sexual health, understanding gender, values, rights, culture, communication skills, sexuality, sexual behavior, and also sexual and reproductive health. In that sense, what do we have to understand and to take home? This relation will definitely, this kind of education will reduce harm, will lead to gender equitable attitudes, will improve power dynamics in relationships, and improve mental health. In this famous review by one of the renowned researchers, Goldfarb and their colleagues, it was shown that reviewing almost 3 decades in research, healthy relationships, as you can see in the gray part of the pie, was also instrumental in building positive relationships, of course, among other benefits released from this study. So when you talk about sexual literacy, whether for the individuals or for the couples, you're talking about knowledge, beliefs, attitudes, motivation, skills in accessing, comprehending, evaluating, applying sexual health information, and also talking about a fundamental component of sexual health, according to us, according to WHO, and according to many other people, which leads us to think about the need. This is a very new UNESCO-released document, and you can see in these different circles that very minimal gray small circles exist, which means there are no existing policies that govern sexuality education in primary and in secondary schools, which means WAS that holds sex education as a very dear to the agendas. We have to work very hard, all of us, in promoting and pushing sexuality and comprehensive sexuality education. And of course, this is very important for educators, important for clinicians, for providers of care, so we can all join hands in promoting positive relationships. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Faisal. And you know, you and I are both parents, and we all want our children to one day have happy, positive relationships. And the best investment we can make in that is comprehensive sexuality education. And thank you for spreading the word with evidence-based policy. If we don't have this great evidence, it is much more difficult to change policy. So thank you for sharing such a comprehensive summary of the evidence on this topic with us. I appreciate it. Okay, so now we go over to our next speaker, who is a special guest for WAS today, and that is Isolda Ataidi. She's the president of Families for Sexual Diversity, Parental Support for LGBTQIA Children. And Isolda is a fierce advocate for the rights of trans children and youth. She's the former president of the board of directors of the FDS and the former member of the board of directors for PFLAG National in the US. So we will post that whole resume of hers on the chat now. But Isolda, thank you so much. You are a good friend of Louis Perelman, our Secretary General, and he recommended that we specifically invite you today because of the important work that you do. And we know he's also such a fierce supporter of this particular work. So thank you for sharing that with us today. So over to you, Isolda.
Thank you so much, Elna. Thank you everyone for having me, for the invitation. For me, it's very important, and it's an honor to represent so many parents around, not only in the United States and Mexico, but around the world. I've witnessed what love and acceptance towards an LGBTQ child can do to transform, and of course to turn a positive relationship, not only within the family, but within themselves, which definitely it takes a lot of self-awareness, and also be very conscious of our actions. So I'm gonna share my my screen just really quick. And yeah, I mean, like I said, family acceptance definitely goes a long way when we're talking about positive relationships within the family, with our close friends and neighbors, as some of my co-presenters just mentioned. And most importantly, we're focusing about a healthy and positive relationship for the same individual, right? So I want to take a look at a little bit about the background that we base our work as families around the world. We base our work, and not only we base our work, what we do, or our actions within our families, it's based on the Family Acceptance Project that some of you might have heard of by Dr. Caitlin Ryan. This project, this study, was born back in 2002, and they actually went out there. It was a field job, and they gather so many information that happened within families when a child came out as LGBTQ or started their transition as a trans individual, right? So what they saw, what they documented is that the higher the level of rejection from the parents towards the child, it definitely, it was correlated with the percentage or the amount of depression the child would face, alcohol and illegal drug abuse, self-harm, high-risk sexual behavior, and which is the most concerning part of all is higher suicide attempts. So definitely that was something that is documented. It's not only word by word, and it's not only like something that we should take lightly, right? If you want to definitely take a look more into depth about the Family Acceptance Project by Dr. Caitlin Ryan, please go and visit her webpage, and all of like the documents and information is available for everyone. So why do parents act that way? Why do we, at the first time our child comes to us and tell us who they really are, who they really love, why do we sometimes don't act the way we should act in a positive way? Well, sometimes it's out of fear, because definitely the media has not worked on our side for so many years. Definitely things are changing from the last few years, but there's a lot of work to do in terms of how media portrays people, LGBTQ people, and it was not always in a positive manner. So as parents, you're afraid that your child is going to face so much transphobia, homophobia out there because of what media has fed lots of people for so many times and generations. Shame, and this definitely it accentuates the determining a cultural basis. What I mean is that regarding or based on the culture of which country you're from, shame takes a really particular role, because what I've seen, especially like having witnessed so many families going through this, we can say that mostly Latinx, Hispanic families, some Asian families treat fear so much seriously, and so shame so much seriously, and so different than any other cultures around the world. So for us, like what people say out there about us, about our child, tells you a lot about how we raise our child. How is my parent role with my child? So we definitely take a lot into account shame, generations of what it is and how it should be. Some of you and most of you, I'm pretty sure, like have heard this, like, oh, this is how it should be. This is how it should. You as a woman should look like this, or you as a woman should act like this. And same thing goes for male counterparts, right? But what happens now when we have a non-binary individual, right? How does that even should look like? So we start to have that, like this fight within ourselves as parents, like, wait, I wasn't raised this way. I was never told this way. I didn't learn this in school, right? How it should feel like, how it should look like. Another reason why we act like this is because there's so many religions, so many creeds that, while some of them do accept and do celebrate diversity, there's some of them that really are very rigid, and they're very binary. So they don't take into account diversity in all their beautiful ways, into whether how you should love, or how you should look or feel or express yourself. This is very important, and this is one that I like to always share with parents. I do believe that most parents do what they do for their children, especially at the beginning when they come to learn their gender identity or their sexual orientation, out of love. But this love is like the wrong kind of love. Why? Because we want to protect them. We want to protect them from what we know could or might happen out there, especially in countries And if you live in the United States, especially in some states that are very, very anti-LGBTQ people, as a parent, you want to love, you want to still protect your child. And one of those actions that we do is like try to not let them be who they are, not even outside of our house, right? Not trying to change them. Some one of my co-presenters mentioned those the things that we do to try to change them, the way they look, the way they dress, the way they love. Conversion therapy, in other words. And most of all, and the most sad part, as Faisal just mentioned, out of ignorance, right? If we have information from a really early age about sexual relations, not only coital, right? When we say sexual, people immediately think about like the sex per se, the sex act, and it's not about that. It's about knowing ourselves, it's about knowing our body and how we can like interact with others. So there's definitely an impact on family rejection when our kid comes out to us as LGBTQ person. And one of those signs is definitely low self-esteem on your child. Feeling of not being worthy of love, friends, or a partner. And this comes a long way, not, like I said, not only within their family relationship with your close ones, but with themselves, and ultimately how they're going to be treated by others in the future. They come to reject their own feelings, impulses, or their own body, especially when we're talking about trans folks, trans people. If we reject them, they're going to start feeling more detached from their body, and they're just going to start hating them more. High risk behaviors and etc. Right? So this is an example of what the Gender and Family Acceptance Project came up with. Those are posters that they're available for everyone, and they come up with different examples of how those acts or activities or whatever you as a parent can do that are going to be getting that risk behaviors in your LGBTQ child. For example, we have blame your child when others mistreat them because of their LGBTQ identity. Don't let your child participate in support groups aimed for LGBTQ people. A very important one, take your child to a therapist or religious leader to change their identity or orientation. That you're ashamed of them, that it's just a phase. So these are plenty examples of what parents usually do or say at the very early stages of when their child comes out to them. What practices, what can we do affirmative to when our children come out to us? Definitely hug them, say, I love you, I'm here for you. But I'll not only say it, we have a saying in Spanish, from the lips out, from los labios para afuera, but really mean it, really act on it. Inform and educate yourself about the topic. It's hard, it should be hard because, as we said, we haven't been educated from like never. Things are starting to change, but then again, like we mentioned, there are some places in the United States, for example, that they're banning early sexual education, and they're even banning books about it. When you get inform yourself, educate yourself, try to do it from reliable sources. There's a lot of really misleading information out there. Like we said, always, internet is a magnificent tool, but please know where to look or who to reach out to. Respect your child's chosen name and pronouns, especially when we're talking about non-binary and trans individuals. This might seem very light for the rest of us, who definitely we're privileged to be seen and have our name and pronouns reflected and seen by others, but it's definitely a key part for trans and non-binary individuals. To not stay silent when in presence of homophobic, transphobic jokes or slurs, or when someone mentions something negative, even if it's not directly aimed at your child or they don't talk about your child. When you let this pass, let those jokes pass. It says a lot about you, and your child is gonna notice that. Welcome your child's LGBTQ friends over to your house. I've seen many cases where parents are accepting of their LGBTQ child, but not of their like other circle, right? So what does that say? Okay, I accept you, but not the others. I accept you because I love you, but I really fully do not understand the trans experience or the an LGBTQ person, so I don't accept the others. So that comes a long way. That says a lot about you actually not fully accepting your child. So be very, very aware of that. Connect or get to know an LGBTQ adult that could potentially be a possibility model for your child. And I would like to emphasize the word potentially, because we sometimes think as parents that because our child is LGBTQ, they should connect or they will connect with any other trans or LGBT person, right? And it's just the same thing as relationships with friends. Just because someone else is Mexican as I am, that doesn't mean I'm going to become immediately friends with that person. It's a lot of intersectionality and a lot of things that have to come into place for us to become friends. So, I mean, yes, look for several possibility models, but don't force any relationships that may not become organically. Demand respect, definitely, from extended family towards your child. Respect is the base. Even if you don't accept, even if your extended family don't accept your child, the very least that you have to demand is respect towards your child. And firm belief that your LGBTQ child will and can be a happy and successful person. But that only will come from this positive relationship that they will have with the first people they come up to. And sometimes, most of the times, is you as a parent, is the really close family members, right? Reach out and organize a parent support groups. That comes a long way for you, like to feel supported and not feel alone. Another example for like positive behavior or positive actions that we can take towards our children, and that would definitely decrease those risky behaviors, especially attempts of suicide, could be to welcome, like I said, your LGBTQ friends to your home, bring your child to groups or events, right? This is a little bit, and like I said, it could be a little bit like the friendship that sometimes we may try to enforce, but also the events, right? LGBTQ events. For us as parents, it's definitely a transition. It's definitely an adjustment sometimes, but sometimes for them as well. So maybe at the beginning, your child may not be ready to be fully out there or be fully immersed in LGBTQ events, and that's also okay. No need to push it. They'll have their own time. They'll have their own process, but that doesn't mean they're not proud of themselves or they don't love themselves. It just takes time to navigate where your child feels more comfortable, right? Speak openly about your child's LGBTQ identity. But again, this doesn't mean that you have the right to disclose everything or anything about your child without their consent. So please check on them first before sharing any information with others.
Isolda, your
so on and so forth.
presentation is so interesting and it almost has me in tears, but we have to wrap it up, please, to move on to the next one.
And last slide, perfectly. Meet people where they are, and that goes for your child, that goes for close family members, and for you as well, for your partner as well. So please always provide those safe spaces for everyone. Thank you, Elna.
Thank you, Isolda. I'm certain people are not happy with me for making you rush there towards the end, because it's so interesting. And for me as a parent and also as a clinician working primarily in that field, what you're saying is so close to my heart. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your passion also with us. I'm sure it will have a great impact. Up next, I have a very special person to introduce to you. Many of you might not know Armin Arihana on the WAS stage. He's very well known in Australia, especially in Queensland, where he is the president of the Society of Australian Sexologists in Queensland. And for those of you who do not know, they are hosting our next conference. So we are already getting excited about Brisbane for WAS 2025 in June next year, and Armin has volunteered to be the president of this Congress. Believe me also, you put up your hand and then it goes through 1,000 hoops that you need to jump to actually be assigned to that role. But thank you, Armin, for doing that, and thank you for being here today in your capacity as a very special person within WAS, but also as a clinician. And your bio will also be shared with everyone now. And I would like to, let me just get the presentation, the title of your presentation. No, looks like that one has been, there's a topic, the power of us, nurturing positive sexual relationships through communication. There we go. Thank you so much, Armin. Over to you.
Thank you very much for the introduction. That was very nice of you. And it's a very big shoes to fill. I'm doing my best. Thank you very much. And I'm going to talk about something that I feel it's a next step after what amazing Faisal did with the communication. And I'm going to talk about the power of us, the way that people communicate, not just in everyday, day-to-day basis, but the way that they communicate for the sexual relationship. So starting with the question, when was the last time you truly felt heard by your partner? Not just listened to, but genuinely understood. In a world full of noises, having the power to have the clear, honest communication in our relationship is more crucial than ever. Today, I want to talk about how the word we choose and the conversation we make can be the key to building and sustaining positive, fulfilling sexual relationship. In any relationship, but especially in sexual relationship, communication is the key, is the glue that holds everything together. It's about more than just talking. It's about being open, honest, and vulnerable with each other. When we communicate effectively, we build a deeper understanding of each other's desire, need, and boundaries. And this creates a safer space when both of us can express ourselves without fear of judgment or rejection. And when that happens, intimacy naturally flourishes. It's not just about the physical closeness, but also about emotional connection. And as a sexologist, I have seen over the years that how couples who prioritize the communication in their relationship tend to navigate the challenges more smoothly and maintain a stronger bond over time. They're not afraid of discussing what they want or what they need, or even what they're scared of. This kind of openness lay the foundation for a relationship where a partner feels seen, heard, and valued. And that's crucial for sustaining intimacy. But if you want to be real, it's not always like that. And it's not that easy. It requires effort, patience, and sometimes a bit of guidance. And encouraging couples to practice active listening when they truly hear and reflect on what their partner is saying can be a game changer. And it's not just about the word, nonverbal cue like touch, eye contact, body language also play a significant role in how we connect with our partners. Ultimately, when couples commit to clear and compassionate communication, they can unlock the door to deeper intimacy, and they can create a relationship that's not just surviving, but thriving. Every relationship faces its share of challenge, of course, and especially when it comes to sexual health. whether it's dealing with mismatched libido, sexual dysfunction, or our everyday to-day stress of life. But how do we navigate these challenges can be the whole difference that we are making in our relationship. And from what I have seen in my work is that when couples approach the obstacles together with empathy and understanding, they not only resolve the issues, but they also strengthen their bonds. And the key is to view the challenges as an opportunity for growth rather than thinking of it as a roadblock. One practical approach that I use with a couple is to encouraging them to talk openly about what's bothering them without thinking of the blame or whose fault was that. For example, if there is a mismatch in sexual desire, rather than one partner feeling rejected or feeling guilty, they can explore what's the contributing factors to that difference in desire. Is it stress? Is it fatigue or something else? And by identifying the underlying causes together, they can find a solution that works for both of them. Another strategy to remind couples is that it's okay to seek help and get support. And whether you go see a sex therapist or a sexologist or trying new approaches to reconnecting intimately or simply talking about the way that you want to have that emotional connection, support can be incredibly useful and beneficial. In the end, overcoming challenges isn't about perfectionist or being a perfectionist. It's about being persistent and patient and looking at it as a partnership. I also like to talk about the mutual respect and consent, which is the cornerstone of a healthy relationship, especially in the context of sexual health. These elements go hand in hand in creating the foundation where both partners feel valued and safe. Respect in a relationship means recognize and honor boundaries of each other's and desire and individuality. It's about appreciating your partner for who they are and understanding their needs, their feeling, and understanding that it's not just about you. They're all as important as your own feeling and needs. When respect is present, it fosters an environment where trust can grow, where both partners feel empowered and express themselves freely. Consent is the practical expression of that respect. It's about ensuring that both partners are comfortable and willing at every step. And as a sexologist, I emphasize the importance of teaching couples how communicating their boundaries and desire clearly can have that effect in the relationship. It's not enough to assume that partners should, it's not enough to assume consent. Partners should actively seek and give it. Make sure that they are both on the same page. This doesn't just prevent misunderstanding or discomfort, it's actually enhanced the intimacy. And when both partners know their boundaries, that will create an environment of respect. They feel more relaxed and they enjoy that connection more fully. By fostering this mutual respect and practicing ongoing consent, then we can have couples, or I'm just referring to my practice, we can see couples who build relationship that's not just only positive, but also deeply fulfilling. And I can't refuse to talk about pleasure. So enhancing pleasure and connection is also an element of this conversation, not just as a physical experience, but as a vital part of emotional connection in relationship. When couples focus on enhancing each other's pleasure, they also deepen their bond and building a stronger connection. Pleasure is a very personal and unique experience for each individual, which is why it's important for partners to explore and communicate, but truly bring them joy. And this might involve trying new experiences, being open to each other's fantasies, or simply paying attention to what makes each other feel good physically and emotionally. So encouraging couples to prioritize pleasure doesn't mean that they're ignoring the challenges or deeper issue. It's about the celebration and the reinforcement of those positive aspects of the relationship. Pleasure is a very powerful way to reconnect, especially during the time of stress and distance. And by focusing on what feels good, couple can reinforce that emotional connection and making the relationship more resilient. And in practice, those who make pleasure the priority often report higher satisfaction and deeper intimacy. And they're not just going through the motion, they're actively seeking out ways to bring each other's happiness, which in turn strengthen their positive relationship. And ultimately, a positive relationship, by enhancing pleasure and connection, couple can create a relationship that is not just positive, but also fulfilling and joyful. So I'm just going to wrap up saying that I'm Armin Ariana, a new face you might have seen. I'm a sexologist, I'm a teacher helping doctors to be good doctors of the future. And I'm the Congress President for the next WAS 2025 in Brisbane, Australia. And I want to say that this event is a rare opportunity bringing global sexual community, including you, the amazing audience, back to Australia after 18 years. And your participation in WAS would not only amplify the incredible work that you are doing and you have done, but also let us learn and grow together as we advance sexual health, right, and justice. And I look forward to seeing you there and building something extraordinary together. And I might think that I have a few tricks and hidden or boutique or secret restaurants and bar that I can take you. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Armin, and for making it very practical for us. We are really looking forward to coming to Australia next year. And as you're talking about the positive relationships, our primary relationships often suffer as professionals in sexual health and rights, right? You know, like you sitting there almost midnight in Australia, up and working still, and you're having to put in so many hours. So please also thank your partner on our behalf, and to all of you, thank your partners today for supporting you as a professional in sexual health and rights. Thank you so much, Armin. Okay, so up next we have my colleague from South Africa, who is also on the advisory committee of WAS, and that is Bradley Daniels. Bradley, welcome. Bradley is a clinical psychologist in South Africa, and we will share his full bio with you in the chat as well. And Bradley's presentation is Lessons in Affectivity for Positive Relationships. Over to you, Bradley.
Thank you, Elna. I'm going to get straight into it and just say that, you know, affectivity is probably a word that most people have not heard before, because in psychology, we talk about affect when we talk about cognitive behavioral therapy, which means emotions. Affectivity means something quite different. So actually, affectivity is the key for positive relationships. So I'm delighted to have heard many sort of key words from my colleagues and the other speakers, which I'm hoping to bring to life for you today. To have you experience a vivencial experience. So to the Spanish speakers, vivencia is being in fullness with life. And of course, in this room right now, there's a lot of affectivity going on. And I'm inviting you to come on a journey with me into affectivity. And to bring, the intention is to bring also the body from a body of pain to a body of pleasure. And so pleasure is something in WAS that's been quite important as well, as you would have heard through some of the presentations. And certainly I think Eszter will also be talking about pleasure as a right, not a luxury. So let's get straight into it. So I hope I get the name right. Isolda said about from the lips to, you know, so we're communicating from the lips, and that's the intention. So I want to bring you on an experience. Remember, this is an experience. It's a vivencial experience. So you really have to be part of it to experience this affectivity that I'm creating with you right now. I know I can't see many of you, but I have to work really hard to use body and all of me to bring this affectivity. So what if I told you that we are head, heart, and body? That much we know, right? So body, heart, and mind, that much we know. What if I told you, actually, we are also a head, a heart, and hips? So I'm going to step back so that you can see the hips. I'm having to work with the space in affectivity as well. So you can see the hips and my funky pants there. And so right now, I'm going to invite you to move with me. So we're not dancing, we're moving. And the music is very important. The music and the musicology is to engage these three centers: head, heart, hips. So let's get straight to it. So for those that have your cameras open, I know that some people are very shy to be seen moving. You can close your camera. As long as you can see me, and as long as you are actually moving in whatever shape or form, allow the music to carry you. And the music I chose is very deliberate and specific, because it actually tells the body what it needs to do. So you don't have to worry about, I can't dance, I can't move. If you can walk, you can do it. I've also seen people that are unable to walk, able to do it as well. So come with me on this journey. I invite you. So the important thing is just connect with the music. Just connect with the music. And let the music carry you.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. It's in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on the tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And you feel good. Dragonfly out in the sun, you know what I mean, don't you know? Butterflies all having fun, you know what I mean. Sleep in peace one day.
I hope that many of you were able to move along with me, or just to allow the music to carry you. So perhaps let's start with what you just experienced, or what I tried to give you an experience of. So the experience is that of what typically would be part of a biodanza experience. So what is biodanza? So biodanza is a system that uses movement and music to do three things. One, to create organic rejuvenation, which is change at a skin level or change at a cellular level, to bring about affective re-education, and to return to original instinct. So organic rejuvenation, change at a cellular level. Affective re-education, this is where the definition of affect becomes important. So affect refers to how we relate to self, to another, to a community, to a group, to a world. So in fact, right now, within the WAS community and those that are joining us, we are creating an affective community. And so affect, the term affect is important in terms of coming from biodanza, and that's what I'm wanting to introduce, as that affectivity and relationality as a skill are the most important in terms of creating positive relationships. Let me just catch my breath for a second. So in every biodanza class, or vivencia as it's called, living in the fullness with life, that's what that means in the best translation, each class will fundamentally be working on 5 lines of the personality. So vitality, desire to live; sexuality, which is more than just sex, it's also about pleasure. It also is tied to creativity, which is the next one. And also affectivity. And in the final instance, transcendence. Transcendence is the relationship between yourself and something that is a higher power or higher force than self. So in each class, fundamentally what we will do, we will take the participants through a cycle of, with the engagement of both the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. And the intention there is, in the first part of the vivencia, is to activate, to bring the identity. We can't relate without having a sense of our own identity. And then in the second part of the curve, it's the regression. And this is where the restorative or the organic rejuvenation takes place. So in essence, just recently, about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago or so, I was at a retreat that specifically looked at understanding the ecological couple. And from this retreat, there were some interesting analogies that I sort of got, which is tying into the previous speaker around ecology, the ecological couple, the understanding that ecology is the study of the home. And our first home is the body. So we can't relate or create a positive relationship without changing or looking at the factors within our own ecology. So our own body, or our own sort of quality of thought, quality of feeling, and in the first instance. The second ecology is going to be our social environments. In other words, what the social environment in relation to other human beings. So in other words, the affectivity, how we relate to ourselves, another, a group, and so forth. So everything in the human experience is about relationality. And I'm glad that in some of the presentations, we got the sense that we're not just talking about the romantic relationship. We're talking about all relationships. And in fact, relationality is critical in the human sort of development, or the human sort of being able to express their full genetic potential. So there's no I without we. There's no I without the affectivity to another. If we're in isolation, there's no need for us to express full genetic potential. So that ties in with the evolutionary biologist understanding, as we had spoken about earlier. So just looking at the time, I just want to sort of sum up. I really had to work with the breath here, like working with life, which is the biocentric principle, putting life first. And I just want to sum up that, in essence, we cannot create a positive relationship if we haven't done the work, or if we haven't paid attention or awareness to our own personal ecology. And the quality of our own personal ecology will then determine the quality of all our relationships. So in essence, the most critical thing for me is for us to understand, that we as practitioners, as sexual health practitioners or other practitioners involved in the sexual health space, it's quite important for us to pay attention to the quality of our own ecological factors, because even whether you're a psychologist, whether you're a sexologist, or whether you're, somebody that's working with another person, it's important that that relationship is a positive relationship, and a relationship that can nourish the development and the full expression of the genetic potential of the other or the person you're working with. So just in short, to end, because we are on time now, I just wanted to show a couple of photos so that you can get a sense of what this relationality looks like. So that's me in the early days as a biodanza facilitator, doing a group with men in terms of developing men's affectivity particularly. And then in the next, every biodanza class will have, or vivencia will have, the same structure. There will be an opening circle. So already in the touching of the hands, the body, there's already an affectivity that you're developing in the group. Typically then the next will be a walk, because a walk is the most integrated movement for the human body and the human experience. And then possibly we could ask to do a walking pair. Again, there's the affectivity building. So following and developing a rhythm together with another. And then we may do a liberation of movement, which is sort of what I was mimicking or showing in the early part. So the liberation of movement, more liberation of movement. And then this is important, the rhythmic synchronization. So in other words, building a rhythm with another, which is part of what a positive relationship would be about, building a rhythm. That's more rhythmic synchronization. This is important. So this here is part of the process of trust. So you'll see Chris, one of my colleagues there, his eyes are closed. I'm leading him through a space and other people are also moving through that space. And so that's building the trust and the affectivity. This is a tunnel of affectivity. So these people come through this tunnel and all this love and affectivity shared with them. More affectivity. Also, the affectivity can't happen without the encounter. That's an important one, which is the encounter of the eyes. We can't have an affective link if we're not paying attention or tending to the other. And of course, the closeness of humanity, the closeness of human connection, whether it's one to many or one to one. And that's just, that happens after, you know, sort of people just being, I wanted you just to see the sense of intimacy that's developed in this group of people in this community. And with that, perhaps that's just some of the facilitators that do this work. That's just the big encounter, what it looks like. Just notice the affective links. I mean, photographs can't mimic these things. So this is really very authentic and has been built. So with that, it's been 35 years. So while the audio is not quite working, really what you needed to see there, they kind of did. So it's not a central, necessarily a sexual dance, it's the connectivity and the affectivity that is held in that particular. For that, I will end there and just thank you for the opportunity to share this somewhat left field experience, but provincial experience with you. I'm so delighted to go after Armin, because now that Armin's got a little bit of a sense, hopefully for the social, for WAS 2025, we can have a full-on Vivenza. Imagine how amazing that conference is going to be. Thank you for the time, and I look forward to engaging with you in the future. Thanks, Elna.
Thank you, Bradley. You are what people think sexologists look like and are like. So thank you for keeping the name of sexologist high here by being so cool. You know, I'd rather do a million talks before I dance like that in front of the audience, but it was liberating. Thank you for sharing your personality with us. And yeah, you can see all of the hundreds of hearts going up there for your talk. Thank you so much. We appreciate all of your effort as well. Now, we took you through this journey with the legendary Eszter Kismödi setting the scene with the sexual rights. And she wanted us to have it more of a celebration and not so serious. And then we made it more practical and more practical as time goes on. But now we need to get back to the serious stuff, because sexual health and rights, it's very political, and it is set within justice as well. And now we have Eszter Corona up next. Eszter, thank you so much for joining us. If you are here today and you don't know who Eszter Corona is, I think you are new to sexual health, because she's such a well-known figure globally with decades and decades of experience in sexual health. Within WAS, she's the previous vice president of WAS. She's the chair of the International Liaison Committee. She is chairing a big project with us with UNFPA at the moment, and she is also with Alan Jihami spearheading the Sexual Justice Initiative of WAS. So Eszter, thank you so much. Your bio will also be shared in the chat, but I hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Elna. And being the last is a privilege in a way, because many of the things that I wanted to say, you know, have already been said in a more powerful way. Maybe that's what I can say. But I will share now my screen if possible. Here we go. I hope you're all seeing my screen. And
Is that
well,
we can't see the screen yet? Can I share?
Can you see my screen now?
No. Let me share it.
Okay. Then can you just can I just have my screen shared by you, Michelle? Because if
Yes,
not,
I'll share it. So you can go ahead.
Yeah. So here we are. We have come full circle now, starting from sexual rights, and now going beyond sexual rights in an initiative. And next one, please, that we have carried out. Many of you may have heard about the Sexual Justice Initiative, which is now almost 4 years old in WAS, and we started working before, and which aims as its final objective to produce and accept a sexual justice declaration, which we hope will be approved in Brisbane next year at our Congress. This is being a very comprehensive activity. It has been led by Alan Jami and myself, and we have a fabulous group of, as a steering committee, worldwide experts that deal in many aspects of connected to sexual health, rights, and people who work on justice, such social justice. Next one, please. We are in the process of crafting a definition. So what I'm going to read now is not the final version, this is what we have achieved up until today. Saying that sexual justice is a fundamental framework for achieving equity and reducing systemic inequalities in sexual health and rights. Sexual justice promotes the right to pleasurable, satisfying, and safe sexual experiences. It advocates for access to justice and comprehensive remedies and redress for people whose full citizenship and human rights have been neglected and or violated. Sexual justice calls for equity in access to sexual health care and services. Sexual justice aims at protecting and promoting sexual rights wherever and whenever these are threat. Working towards these goals, sexual justice challenges social norms, power dynamics, and institutions that perpetuate oppression, discrimination, and violence related to sexuality. Now I'm going to go into how this is related to the theme that we have today, which is positive relationship. And I'm sorry in a way that we cannot expand on what positive relationships may mean, because what I'm going to present is very schematic. And in terms of saying, that relationships always have this shade and light of and darkness, and a positive way of seeing how people relate to one another, how communities, how societies relate to one another. And so focusing on positive relationships, I think it's a way of walking through a path towards positive relationships. I'm not going to go in a very detailed way because the time is very short now, but already we have, in this talk, shared values have been exposed, and a lot has been said about respect, dignity for all individuals, because at the bottom of sexual justice is the recognition and of sexual rights. It's that all people or individuals are born equal. That's what we are hoping to achieve in the long run. It may be an utopia, but it's still the sort of the light that we are looking at the end of a tunnel, or anyway, what is guiding us. Next one, please. And here again, I thank very much Justin, because he has focused on what is the required environment for pleasurable and satisfying, and precisely emphasizing safety. So we have the emotional and physical safety as this network that allows us to go into relationships. And we have more than that. We need the social network that enables us to walk into relationships, to be able to relate to one another. Next one. And this one I'm going to focus on because maybe this has not been so stressed in what my colleagues have said before. Challenging harmful norms, both sexual justice and positive relationships involve questioning societal norms that perpetuate inequality, and Isolda Ataide has spoken about this, addressing power imbalances in racial relationships and institutions, in communities, in countries. This is not only related or isolated into thinking about only individuals, but expands into the whole society. And right now, I think that more than ever, we need to work on this thought about having a global relationship. And of course, promoting inclusive attitudes towards diverse sexualities and gender identities. Next one, please. Promoting access and rights. Again, this is something that is very important in sexual justice, the access to equitable care and sexual health care for and services. And it may be related to positive relationships when we're talking about partners, about communities to prioritize each other's sexual health and well-being. Next one, please. And here's another one which is very important for us, intersectionality. Sexual justice recognizes intersections with other forms of justice, and positive relationships reflect this by acknowledging how various identities and experiences shape relationship dynamics, and supporting partners, when we're talking about partners, in addressing injustices they face in different areas of life. And as I was saying, this brings us full circle into what Eszter Kismödi was talking about, how now, when we talk about positive relationships and about sexual justice, we're going beyond into this area, which we call now intersectionality, in which we look into how this affects us from the environment point of view, conflict resolution, and many other areas. And I don't want to dwell into these, but of course, this has to do with age, race, ethnicity, etc. And the struggles that people are undergoing for this, and how this builds relationships, may build positive relationships, and how this interacts with sexual justice. Next one, please. Community participation and leadership. Sexual justice emphasizes transparent process and community involvement. This is what I was alluding when I talked about going beyond the individual, but also at the same time recognizing that individuals and communities, communities and societies should be woven together and not seen as contradictory elements in human life and in working towards relationships. Next one. So what is that we ultimately want? Sexual justice and positive relationships. What we are aiming is to create a society where all individuals can exercise their rights, full circle, with dignity, and I will also add, in freedom, thinking about freedom in the widest and possible sense, and something that it's already established by human rights, where people feel empowered in their relationships and sexual experiences. And here we touch about how every person in this webinar has talked about body, about environment, about relationships that are fostered through education. That is how they're built. And of course, where there is greater understanding and acceptance of diverse relationships and sexual expressions, understanding that precisely sexuality is this wide rainbow, which has like light. It's not made of static experiences, but something that it goes beyond. It's very fluid and it's very inclusive as we see it. So finally, next one, please. By fostering positive relationships built on mutual respect, open communication, and shared values of equity and justice, we contribute, we hope, to the broader goals of sexual justice and move towards a more inclusive society where sexual health and rights are a reality for all. So this is how we see sexual justice, as enveloping and going through and thinking through all that has been said in this webinar, which fortunately, as I say, you know, as I'm being the last one, I don't have to elaborate more because it has already been said in a very clear and again, positive way, but recognizing also the challenges that we have to go through to build positive relationships and to achieve, in the end, we hope, sexual justice. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Eszter. You were the perfect conclusion to this webinar to bring it back to the serious work that we are doing, and all the best for the Sexual Justice Initiative. We are very much looking forward to the documents to be produced now over the next year. I would just like to ask the team of today to switch on your cameras again, and for Michelle, if you don't mind putting those with cameras on back on the screen. I just want to see your nice faces one last time, and also you, Renee de Klerk, who's the Executive Director of WAS, who's been in the background all along doing all of the chats and everything here. Thank you so much to all of you for being here. You had fantastic presentations. Thank you for staying all the way to the end. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, and we will definitely continue this conversation, as Lynn said, all throughout the month of September and then ongoing after that. So thank you for your time, and thank you to all the participants for joining us tonight from whatever time of the day it is, from ever you were in the world, and to Michelle also for your service delivery. We appreciate it. Happy World Sexual Health Day. There's Faisal back as well at the last second. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good day. Bye-bye.